Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Chance reads his books. He narrates his book to you. Hello, I'm Chance Paladin. Hope you're having a fantastic night. This is book number 10. This is Rail and Eggs, and this is a farm animal adventure. And nothing in this book should be taken as medical, legal, or any advice on anything. It's just a book. All rights reserved. No portion of this book may be reproduced in any form without permission from the author, except as permitted by U.S. copyright law. This is a work of fiction. Named characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events are purely coincidental. Content advisory is as follows. I write post-apocalyptic stories, therefore portions of these stories are intended for mature audiences. There's about as much romance as you would expect in a typical post-apocalyptic scenario. Explicit sexual acts where included are germane to the story and not intended to be gratuitous or fetishized. There isn't any really hard swearing worse than what you'd hear on cable. There's a moderate range of violence as would be expected in a post-apocalypse story. However, the suffering aspects are not deliberately glamorized or embellished upon. Please enjoy these books responsibly. Forward. People often ask, what's the point? If everything's going to collapse anyway, why keep going? The answer is because telling us what we can and can't do is the only sure way to make sure something actually gets done. Living in the bleak, surrounded by dread, absolutely 0 point to move forward, racked with horrible pain, nothing left to lose. All the while we have this face like, is that all you got? Because we know that things don't have to be this way, and if not us, then who? And if not now, when? It can't be anyone else. It has to be us. It has to be now. We are the architects of our future. 1. Good morning. Class, Stronghold, 3 years and 3 months after the collapse. Late spring. It had been raining for days. There was mud everywhere in the classroom. The lowlands had as much as an estimated 7 feet of water in them. The industrial island in Portlandia was gone. Parts of Tacoma had ceased to exist. The I-5 belt had a huge missing portion in the middle and another area partially wiped out by landslides. The flood had taken out Kent, which was now like the last city of Atlantis. 12 got taken out by landslides and was impassable, so was 503, I'd heard. And all the kids wanted to know is why there's a bright red chicken on the roof next door to our classroom. In the far-off distance, I heard a train go by. All right, I'll tell you about the chicken and the train. How about that? They all got away from the window and sat down. The rain was pouring, but the chicken was sitting there like it was only Tuesday. So I bet y'all didn't know this, but trains were the original framework for a great republic. Before that, people had to ride horses or carriages, and it took forever to get anywhere or do anything. Sharing food outside of town was impossible. Moving unprocessed timber anywhere without royally screwing up a giant river was impractical. Moving coal around for fuel simply didn't happen. The mail took months to get anywhere. The Transcontinental Railroad was coming, and our end of the Republic had to have something for it to connect to. After some squabbling, everyone finally got to arguing about the finances and logistics and built the darn thing. It lasted a long time, but eventually fell out of style due to the failed concept called just-in-time. The bulk of the infrastructure stopped being used due to neglect, lack of skill, and lack of law enforcement. Thankfully, with the fuel we got, we were able to get some locomotives going again and avoided what could have been a big catastrophe. 2. Business as usual. Kent, chicken coop, several days earlier, dawn, day 1. Ashley, so named due to her bright red plume demeanor and mysteriously leaving ash everywhere, sat in the chicken coop, singing to herself in her head, thinking about life, supposing to be randomly churning out eggs. The rooster alerted everyone that it was morning over and over again as if the sunrise wasn't obvious enough. But just in case someone wasn't aware. Life was good and everything was safe in her little hamlet. Anything that could have attacked her had savagely got hunted down and eaten long ago by the humans in the valley. She could finally sleep in peace and try to make eggs like she was supposed to. Exactly like the other chickens did. She tried to doze back off, but the rooster wouldn't let it go. Maybe if Ashley could sleep a little bit more, she could get her egg going, but she kept getting distracted. How did that stupid rooster even know it was morning? She looked out of her coop and realized she couldn't really see the sun from the clouds pouring rain everywhere. I'm sure it's raining a lot, Ashley mused. Her farm owner guy regularly brought her random food to eat based off whatever the farms were making at the time. She didn't know what any of it was, but it all tasted amazing to her. No food was brought this morning, though. Ashley's tummy rumbled. She shook around for a second, floofed herself up, and started preening. The other chickens weren't nice to her, since she was different. Regardless of what happened, when she woke up the next morning, she would be fine and continue on with her routine. Ashley understood what some of the food was. Sometimes there was ground up pieces of oyster from the nearby Pacific Ocean, but the usual was veggie scraps. The oyster pieces helped her with her digestive system, but she really loved veggie scraps. Sometimes there wasn't a lot, though, so she'd hop out into the yard before it was time to wake up and she would forage. Seeds she'd scratch and claw around, and sometimes she would find worms. One time she even found a snake, which she went berserk on and killed and ate, much to the horror of the other chickens in the coop. She looked at them confused, and that was the last day anyone picked on her, for either out of respect or fear. She liked to think it was a little bit of both. As she was scrummaging through the dirt, as she did every day, looking for extra breakfast in the abnormally warm spring, she thought back to how bitterly cold of a winter it had been. Much colder than any winter she could remember, although she couldn't remember very many. Now it was a really warm spring. She was happy it was warm, and it made her feel good, like she was brand new. Then, as it did so many times every day, a water droplet landed right on her head as she was looking for worms. This startled her, and she jerked her head back and looked around. Nobody had thrown anything at her that she could tell, and she saw another drop miss her head onto the ground. Oh, raining again, she thought, and picked up the worm she'd found and brought it inside so it wouldn't drown. She decided the worm's name would be Fred. It always helped to name your worms, so you could tell them apart when choosing which to eat. I'll save you for later, Fred. Then she put the worm under the hutch so it could go hide. The 2 drops turned to 4, then 8, and thousands. The other chickens looked up into the sky like idiots, and a rooster cawed at the idiots to knock it off and keep their heads down. Ashley couldn't believe how stupid they all were, but there wasn't much she could do about it. They didn't listen to her anyways. They didn't listen to anyone. They were like sheep. They were worse than sheep. This morning, while waiting for the food to arrive, the chickens wouldn't stop arguing about which had pooped in their water dish. It had split into 2 factions, with the second counter-arguing that the chickens had been drinking in the poop dish. So that was chickens in a nutshell. But sheep. Ashley liked sheep, but they were inevitably stupid as well, and wouldn't do anything to save themselves. They had a sheepdog that was really helpful, but the chickens didn't have a version of that. The other chickens were too stupid and didn't deserve anything they had. A few more drips came down from the sky. Ashley heard thunder in the sky and flinched, but was safe in her hutch. Lightning started flashing around and causing the other chickens to panic like morons. They ran this direction, that, and balked and cocked around, wanting someone to shove them into safety, too purposefully ignorant to do it themselves. Life was so much easier as a blissful, ignorant idiot. Ashley walked to the other side of the hut to see if their farmer people were going to come take care of the chickens, but they were doing something else. Looked like they were with the cows, or maybe the horses. The 2 sort of looked the same to Ashley. Maybe one was a little fatter or different colored. They were all different colors, though, sort of. Maybe one of them the humans rode on. Ashley wasn't sure. The lightning subsided, and Ashley bounded up to the top of her coop, which she was not supposed to do, to get a better look. She wasn't a fan of water, but really wanted to know what was going on. She thought for a second. It wasn't time to take the cows to go to cow school or anything like that. Where were the cows going? Had it been time for them to graduate from Bovine University already? It seemed a little too soon for that. Ashley mustered all of her strength and got a running start and jump flapped from the top of her coop to a wooden post that made up the fence. All the other chickens stopped their business at this point and became very jealous of Ashley and wanted to get up where she was. They were all mad at themselves for not thinking of this before and taking it out on Ashley. That anger turned into disdain as they realized she wasn't safe up there, and that no smart chicken would ever do that due to its unsafeness. Ashley thought back to the rooster always perched up high, and then turned around and shook her chicken butt at the other girl chickens. She had a few peacock-looking feathers poking their way out that she waggled extra to get the point across. This flagrant chicken insult made them all mad, and they began thrashing around and clucking in the rain. Their furiosity at Ashley was palpable as they feverishly clucked and pecked at the air towards her. Without another thought, Ashley angled herself in the direction of the farmhands to see what they were doing. It looked like something really concerted and important.